Welcome back to another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. You know what it is. We mentioned yesterday it was going to be a Farabaugh Friday, so you can't have Farabaugh Friday without the man himself, Nick Farabaugh, joining the show. How we doing, pal?
We're doing good, man. We're doing good. It's the end of the week. It's the least busy time in my schedule coming up now. 6 weeks, baby. 6 weeks off. I'm liking it. Not really
Oh
off,
man,
but it's about as off as I get, man. So
you got anything planned for this? Not,
it,
not not off as you mentioned, but 6 weeks time before training camp.
yeah, 6 weeks before camp, man. So they'll be back in Latrobe in July 24th. So that is a ways away, man. I mean,
It
that's
is.
it's actually kind of crazy how far that is, but then you realize, I think, what the first football game of the actual season's less than 100 days away. It's like 2 months. It's less than 2 months away. I mean, so
Yeah, the time flies. The time does fly.
it's far, but close. That's
This
really
is the time now, from now until training camp, where we get like the player football camps that they're hosting and stuff like that. That's the
yes,
season that we're in now.
yeah. I think that's a good way to put it. Because everybody's going back home or going on vacation or doing what else.
Hmm.
This time is the time of year for everyone in football to take a chill pill. That's really what it is. It's even like during the off season, like the players sometimes, they're going around doing promotional events for the NFL or the teams. Like Justin Fields, for example, went to Europe for like a month, dude, just doing promotional stuff across the whole continent. So this is like the time of year where everything settles down for a little bit. These 6 weeks, um, we don't hear anything, so it's hard, man. Like it's if you're trying to create a form of content for these 6 weeks, you're not really doing anything special. That's really where it's coming down to there. Like so, it's going to be the least busy 6 weeks, and then once we get to camp, the first day of camp is going to be like the busiest day of the year. So that's what it's like, man.
Yeah. I'm excited though. I think it's going to go pretty fast. It's going to fly by. Before we know it, we'll be talking about training camp. Then before we know it, we'll be in season. But Nick, until we get to that point, we're going to talk about some mini camp takeaways of yours. We got Allen's yesterday. But we'll wait on that because Omar Khan was on 93.7 The Fan, had an appearance on there and talked about some things. And Allen and I didn't discuss anything that was talked about on there because yesterday's episode entirely dedicated to Allen giving his takes on players that the X sphere, it's dude, like Twitter sphere just sounds so much better. But anyways, that the audience wanted to know about from the Steelers roster, which turned into basically talking about everybody on the roster. So anyways, we'll get some of your takes on how minicamp went and certain players, risers, who stood out, stuff like that on the back end of the show. But I wanted to talk about some of the things Omar talked about. We've talked a lot about Najee Harris, some mini camp storylines involving him as well. But Omar specifically talking about him the other day, saying that, it was a business move to not pick up the 5th-year option. Doesn't mean that they won't do business with him in the future. What are your thoughts on that comment? Like, is it really, because in my mind, once they didn't pick up his 5th-year option, I kind of just started to look at it as, okay, he's going to play out 2024 and they'll go their separate ways. He hits free agency a year early. But realistically, in your mind, is there the opportunity there for the Steelers to work out a long-term deal with him?
Not before. I don't feel like it's realistic before the season because let's be real here. Najee Harris would want more than the 6'7", than the 6'9" he was going to make. Like that. That to me, if the Steelers decline that, are you really going to pay him, say, 8-9 million a year, which is probably right around where he would ask first to start? Probably not, because I mean it just doesn't make sense logic wise, right? Why would you
Yeah.
decline the option that's more cost controlled and then pay him more? So it doesn't really make much sense to me. I'm sure they're open to doing business with him, but I don't see him accepting, lower than that amount. So I don't see it realistically happening there. I think it could happen after the season. I don't think that's like a crazy thought where, he has a really good year and they resign him in free agency or whatever. I think that could happen. I don't think that's like something that's insane to think about. But really, that to me was like, okay, you turn down that option that's guaranteed almost 7 million, so you're not gonna pay him more than that for for this year certainly, and for next year. So really, the contract would be something like, I don't know, 2 years, 18 million, just like that's a conservative estimate, like something like that, where you would add 2 more years onto the contract. But it doesn't make sense logically. Like, why would you decline the 5th-year option if that's what you
Yeah.
do? So I think the only way this happens is if Najee Harris somehow, once kind of takes less than that. And I certainly don't think he will. I think he's going to bet on himself to play well this year and re-up, in the offseason. So that's really what that meant to me. I don't think the door's closed on Najee Harris, being here
Okay.
this year, but I don't want to say it's completely closed, but I think it's pretty unlikely that, he gets a contract extension before the season. It doesn't make sense logically. It doesn't line up with the actions. Why do you decline the 5th-year option when you're gonna have to pay him more than that probably, to sign him this year? Sign him right now. Najee Harris should not accept less than that. It's just logic. He should think that he's worth that 5th-year option anymore. So, I don't think they're gonna if they offer him 2 years, 10 million, I think he's gonna say, no. I'm just gonna bet on myself. I think that's a smart move for him too.
I agree, and I think that that's kind of why I'm looking at the way that I am. Not to say that like they can't recalibrate after the season and value him more than they do currently. But and I'm not saying that they don't value him to a degree, but like to me, if you valued him in a way that I think he would accept an offer, like valued him enough where you're putting an offer on the table that is also to Najee's liking, you would not only be working on an extension, but like the 5th year would have been picked up. Like it's just hard for me to get my mind around the idea that they end up coming to an agreement on both sides of this thing. Like I just think that Najee's going to value himself because of, and I keep going back to this. Maybe I'm overvaluing like this information, but when there was all this talk about the running back market, they were having those Zoom meetings and stuff. Like Najee Harris is very, very vocal about it. I don't think that he's looking to reset the market or anything like that, but I also think that he's going to try to do very well for not only himself, but also running backs just trying to get paid beyond him as well.
Yeah, listen, I mean, he's a guy that's played 17 games every single year he's been
Yep.
in the league. He is the only running back over the last 3 seasons to have 1,000 or more yards in the last 3 seasons. Like, that he's the only running back. And I know we say, 1,000 yards certainly doesn't mean what it used to mean, right? Um, but you also have to, like, imagine that
Sure.
1,000 yards because you played 17 games and because you're a workhorse back, and he consistently performs better the longer the season gets along just because he is a big back that doesn't take this ton of wear and tear. He still has a lot left, I think, in the tank because the Steelers have done a nice job over the past 2 or 3 seasons of managing his touches. So he's got probably a few more years left. So to me, that's a guy. If
Yeah.
I'm Najee Harris, I'm betting on my durability, my skill set that I've proven over 3 years, and I'm going to hit free agency. And even if he's not, this efficient, explosive back like other guys, what Najee Harris can do is say, "I stay healthy though. Like I play. I'm
Yeah.
going to be." And he is there every single game. So we'll kind of see what happens there. I think he's going to hit the open market. That's what I would do if I were him. I'd hit the open market, see what the offers are, and hey, if the best offers in Pittsburgh comes back to Pittsburgh. But I think when you're a running back, and Najee Harris came into the NFL as an older running back too. I think he came in as 23-year-old rookie. So he's gonna be an older first-time free agent just for the position, anyways. He's got to hit the open market to me if I were him, and I'd get the most money possible now that 5th-year option was declined. So we talked about this, Smitty, the day of. You and I were talking about it when they declined his option of how Najee Harris. While you should be mad that the team you got drafted by declined your option. You should look at the positives of it and say you're a running back. You get to hit it a year earlier. So
Mhm.
he can get a contract, get paid. Najee Harris coming in to the NFL as an older running back right out the chute was always at a disadvantage to get, 2 big contracts. He might only get 1 crack. So it's going to be big for him. So that's why if I were Najee Harris, I would definitely hit the open market and see what he can get. And I'd bet on
Yeah.
myself. That's what I would do.
Full agreement on everything that you said there. The other thing that Omar touched on, Troy Fautanu on the right side. There was already conversation about wanting to get Broderick on the left in the past, so this kind of lines up with that. Is this how you saw this playing out? And again, right now they're just playing patty cake really until we get the pads on at training camp. But how do you feel like that transition for him has gone?
Well, Pat Meyer told me that when he was talking with Troy Falatanu throughout the draft process before they even drafted him when they were at Washington, that he told him he felt better on the right than the left, which I thought was interesting. Like you don't hear that a lot now. Falatanu played right tackle in high school, so um, that's necessary context to this. So he has experience on the right side dating back to those formative years when you're playing high school ball. And then he played left for most of his college career in game, but he did practice on the right side a lot too in practices. So Fa'utanu has experience on both sides, and so it's not as hard for him. And he seems to be kind of really picking it up quickly. And I think, him on the right side makes sense when we've gone back to this, when we've talked about Broderick Jones kind of being a natural left tackle, a guy that has felt more comfortable on the left side, even if the profiles of traditional right and left, they would be flipped because Fautanu plays and looks more like a traditional left tackle and Broderick Jones plays and looks like a traditional right tackle.
Mhm.
Um, you know, it's a different NFL now and kind of how those work. The value of a left tackle versus a right tackle is, I mean, there's not much of a difference anymore, to be quite honest with you. Top right tackles get paid just as much as top left tackles at this point. If there was a right tackle in the NFL that was equally as good as Trent Williams, that guy would probably be paid very similarly. Tristan Wirfs, plays at left tackle, used to play at right tackle, but had he stick to right tackle, probably would have been paid again very similarly to the top tackles in the league. So there's not much of a difference there, and so you want the guys to be where they're most comfortable. So if Troy Fautanu is actually most comfortable on the right side, I mean, power be to put him there. Like that's what you do. And the starting tackle duo to me should be Broderick Jones at left and Troy Fautanu at right. I really feel that. I feel that's where it should go. Dan Moore Jr. can only play the left side, which obviously throws a wrench into everything. But I think those are your two best tackles right now. That's what I would think. I think Troy Fautanu, in terms of just a retention, knowing the playbook, playing fast, is looking good. Again, I'm not going to say he looked good or looked bad because
Yeah,
we
right.
we talked about this. They're playing patty cake. They're barely touching each other. Um, you can only face a speed rush basically, and like an inside counter maybe. So your hand to hand combat stuff, I guess, is in there. But I mean, how much can I really take away in a live rep watching hand usage on one guy when I'm
Mhm.
watching all 90 of these guys? So Troy Fautanu, has looked good from a speed retention standpoint. Things seem to be getting slower for him, and it seems like by all accounts he's taking well to the right side. So I think it's going to be fine. I think he'll be fine. I'm more interested to see how Broderick Jones actually kind of
Mhm.
grows. I have more questions about Broderick Jones. The more we kind of go on and kind of okay, where's the technique look this year? I've seen him a lot at right. How does he look at left, et cetera, et cetera. I'm excited to actually see that in Latrobe. Kind of how Broderick Jones has grown his game over the offseason.
Sure. Okay. So maybe again, that's not a position where you can necessarily have a ton of takeaways from how they look from a performance standpoint. So if it's not the offensive line, it's not the defensive line. There's certain positions that you can maybe get a better look at throughout mini camp. So let's dive into some of your thoughts, your overall takeaways, some risers, guys that you thought stood out. Alan has been raving about Beanie Bishop this entire time. So I would say that's probably the guy that he wanted to single out. I know we had a conversation about Calvin Austin after OTAs, and kind of sounds like he continued to carry on and look like the second best receiver on the roster behind George Pickens through mandatory minicamp. But beyond those guys, who has stood out to you in a positive way? Who's made a name for themselves as we gear up for training camp?
Yeah, those are the top two guys that we named in the standouts yesterday. So no surprise you brought them up. Guys that are standing out beyond those. I've been very impressed personally by how kind of fast Peyton Wilson has taken to different roles that they've used him in. They've moved him around a lot of formations. And while obviously I don't have much on the tackling blitz part of it, the
Yeah.
speed's real and he's been good in coverage. So he doesn't look like a guy that's out of place there in coverage or in man coverage. He's there. So I thought he was pretty good in the aspects I can actually evaluate in shorts. So I thought he was doing well. Another guy I think, that's someone to watch personally on the offensive side of the football is Darnell Washington. I think
Mm,
specifically in the red zone. I don't think he's going to be a high usage target, where he's getting 50 catches every year.
sure.
But
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I wrote it in today in takeaways on the Steelers Now site that Darnell Washington, I think, mossed 4 or 5 dudes in the red zone in the 3 days at minicamp. I
Hmm.
think, like, so they would just throw fades to him, just to see what would happen. And it wouldn't be like against, I don't know, like Thomas Graham. It would be against Minka and Deshaun Elliott and Joey Porter
Alan
Jr.
mentioned one against Cam Sutton, like really
Yeah.
good coverage, but yeah.
So he faced, I think, all the top 5 DBs: Minka, Sutton, Elliott, Porter, Jackson. I think the only one he didn't make the catch against was Joey. So that was impressive, man. He you guys obviously didn't see it, but when he mossed Minka Fitzpatrick, it was nasty. I mean, it was
Mm.
incredible to see. So I think he's a guy, like I was telling Alan this yesterday, like he could be a guy that has like 20 catches and 6 of them be touchdowns. I think
Yeah,
he'll be
I was saying to Alan yesterday when he brought that up that I think I was a year off because someone asked me what his rookie projections were or my prediction for his rookie year, and I was like, dude, he's gonna have like 16 catches, but like 5 of them are gonna be touchdowns, and
yeah,
I'm just gonna run that idea back again for his sophomore season.
yeah, like I think that's realistic. Um, I really do. And so when you kind of look at Darnell Washington, I just think the red zone area is going to be really important for him. So I think he'll be a weapon in the red zone, and he looked really good in training camp in that area as well. I thought down the stretch in the last 3 days, I started to see a lot of Des Fitzpatrick.
Mm.
Sure, Alan. I don't know if Alan's mentioned Des. When you
Well,
guys,
you mentioned Dez to me, and I brought him up to Alan, and he said in terms of like, and not even just bottom of the roster guys, because we're talking about like after George and the way that Calvin has kind of stood out, there's a lot of opportunity beyond
there is.
those guys, even. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, so Des has just been really solid. He's the main special teamer in the room. Now all the guys are getting special teams reps. Van Jefferson, Quez Watkins, Roman Wilson, all those guys are playing special teams. Even guys like Marquez Callaway and Denzel Mims, Deuce Watts, et cetera, et cetera. But Des is the actual guy that has in-game experience playing on those units. He is consistently getting open and making tough grabs. He mixes in with that first team group a lot too. He had a touchdown against Joey Porter Jr. yesterday. Um,
Mm.
I don't know what it is. Listen, I don't know what it is about that matchup, Des Fitzpatrick against Joey Porter Jr., but Des Fitzpatrick has owned Joey Porter Jr. basically in practice. I don't know what
Some
it.
guys just have guys' numbers,
Yeah, I don't know
you
what
know.
it is, man. But Des has owned that matchup since Joey came to the
See,
Steelers.
the problem with you saying that is this is going to surface. Someone from the Ravens, Bengals, or Browns is going to pluck Des Fitzpatrick,
Yeah,
and
I
then he's only
guess.
going to be active against the Steelers.
I guess, man. I guess it's just kind of funny,
Yeah.
when you look at it and that a guy that's probably wide receiver 5 or 6 is doing
Mhm.
that to your top corner, but he did it last year too. It's kind of funny. I don't know. I mean, and Joey has Joey and George have faced off a lot more this year too, and Joey's definitely winning more of the reps. Like it's just funny to me. I don't know, but Des Fitzpatrick's having a really good spring, and I really do think he's a guy that people are taking for granted in that competition. I just think he's a really steady player and special teams. He's a high floor guy. Like what you're going to get with him. You're going to get really quality special teams out of him. And if you throw him the ball, he's going to catch it. Like he makes tough grabs. I think that's something else. When you are a bottom roster guy, okay, you're probably going to have some massive deficiency, and certainly Des Fitzpatrick has. He has okay athleticism, and he's not a demon route runner or anything. But you throw him the ball, he makes the grabs. He knows how to get in the soft spots of zones. So he's a guy that sticks out there. Another guy that I think has at the very least flashed a lot and seems things seem to be getting slower for him is Nick Herbig. Um,
Mm,
he
yeah.
really looks solid. You know, pass rush wins. I can't tell you the pass rush side of it, but when they're working him off ball and dropping him into coverage and stuff, dude, he's making plays. Um, like he is a guy that gets his hands on the football, puts his hands up. The D line has been just terrorizing Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, um, just by batting balls down at the line of scrimmage.
Mm,
It's easier to do it without pads because obviously you don't have to worry about the physicality of things and quarterbacks running. So they've been getting their mitts up a lot. Herbig's done that a lot, but he's a guy that has done a lot of versatile things so far, and he's really impressed. Obviously, he's an edge rusher first, but we talked all pre-draft last year of him moving off the ball, and you can see why when you see him move fluidly and have the instincts he does. But he's an edge rusher first, and I think that's the right thing. But listen, they drop in the coverage on creepers or do sim pressures off the edge. I think he's a guy that can really stick out there as someone to watch. So that's just a few guys that have stuck out to me. Um, I'm sure you and Alan talked about Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, and kind of
I
have you
mean,
and how they
honestly,
look.
not lately. Like
Okay,
that conversation has honestly been like, I feel like an ongoing thing. That this week we didn't really have that conversation, and I mentioned pretty much everybody being asked about on the roster on Allen's post. People were not. No one brought up the quarterbacks. So
it's
whatever you
interesting.
got.
That's interesting. So I think this week, um, naturally was the best week for Russell Wilson so far. Um, more, he's just getting more comfortable and has better chemistry with the guys. But Wednesday was the best day the offense had all spring. I mean,
Mm,
the offense decisively destroyed the defense on Wednesday. The defense couldn't cover the deep routes. I was talking with Alan that day, and I said, dude, the standouts today are all offensive standouts. I think the only guy we had down as like defensive standout that was obvious was Beanie Bishop, because he just has
mm,
been so consistent. But I think George Pickens had a big touchdown that day. It was a deep ball. Calvin Austin caught one. Van Jefferson caught one. I think Quez Watkins caught one. All of them were from Russell Wilson. Like Russell Wilson was just on one that day. He looked great. His deep ball accuracy is absolutely phenomenal. He's thrown at least 50 deep balls over the spring, and maybe two or three of them have been off the mark, like accuracy wise. The deep ball is just it's still elite. There's no question to me that his deep ball is still there. It's just going to be about the other stuff, but he had a good week. Obviously, I think the stuff that concerns you with Russ, the running into sacks, the pocket management, it's harder to evaluate that when you're in shorts. It's hard to evaluate that
mhm.
even in training camp. Because if you're not getting hit, it doesn't create a sense of urgency really for the quarterback. Justin Fields, I think the arm talent is dazzling. He's made a few unbelievable throws that I don't know how he made. There was one on Wednesday, where it was cover two on a wheel route. Denzel Mims was in the slot and he ran a wheel route, and the safety was pinching down on it. I mean, it should have been a pick. If any other quarterback threw it, probably, but he like teardropped it between the two guys perfectly to the boundary, and no one else but the receiver could catch it. It was a beautiful pass. So both these guys have flashed like, okay, the arm talent is there and their placement is awesome. I think Justin Fields has been a little bit more. He sprayed some balls a little bit off the mark. The accuracy's been a bit more of a question. His legs have definitely been a weapon. Even in like this setting, he has stepped up and taken off and clearly wouldn't have been sacked in a few instances. It's been pretty clear. But I do think Fields, everything you know about Justin Fields, I think has he looks the part. His legs are deadly, and he has some inaccuracy issues, specifically to the intermediate part of the field. The deep ball actually is pretty accurate, but he throws like outside the numbers. He's missed a few guys. Russell Wilson, on the other hand, has been pretty good accuracy wise. His 2 minute drill on Wednesday, Russell Wilson's 2 minute drill was really good. Calvin Austin caught that touchdown. So these quarterbacks, they're doing fine. I think Russ had the better week, but Justin Fields obviously has the intriguing arm, and you see
Mhm.
why Justin Fields was, the 11th overall pick. Man, I mean, you could see it.
Okay. Well, that's good. That takes us right into our questions because I know we're going to get to a couple of those. First one comes from Shappy. Let's talk about how sitting behind and learning from Russ will/can help Justin Fields.
It's, I think the fact that they are so similar does help him because I think Russell Wilson and Justin Fields play a lot. We talk about play a lot alike. We see like the overlap of their weaknesses and strengths, right? I mean, like
Mhm.
everybody can see it. Um, Russ was more dynamic when he was younger. Obviously, he's lost a little bit of the juice, but he could run. He could do all that. Fields is probably more of a height, weight, speed athlete than Russ was, but both of them can certainly be deadly with their legs. Both have kind of pocket management issues where they can run into pressure and how's the internal clock going. Um, Both have issues thrown over the middle of the field. I think there are different reasons why. I think for Russ, it's the fact that he legitimately can't see it sometimes, and I
Mhm.
think for Fields, it's processing post snap specifically. But like they have similar issues. So, you know, things that Russ maybe struggled with in his younger days, or has kind of seen, he can help Fields with. They're just really overlapping skill sets wise. And the fact that Justin Fields looked up to Russell Wilson, and that's a guy that he's been a mentor for a long time. I think that really helps a guy like Justin Fields to kind of learn his weaknesses, learn how to rectify them, et cetera, et cetera. Because Russ is a really studious guy that looks into every part of film he can. So he'll be able to help him. I think Justin Fields ingraining that kind of will help. Help fix the weaknesses in his game, the mechanics. I think okay, how did Russ become so accurate? All over the parts of the field. I think that's going to be something that he can learn from just mechanically tweaking stuff. So there's stuff there I think that you can get um, from Russell Wilson if you're Justin Fields. And I think just, okay, he's been the franchise before, and this is obviously year 4 for Justin Fields, but how does a guy that's won a Super Bowl do it? Like, how does he go about the
Mhm.
locker room? And
Right.
I know that's obviously, that's people are questioning that about Russell Wilson, how he manages a locker room and everything, but he is a consummate professional, and he clearly garners respect, um, right away in the building. So I think that there could be things that you could take away from that too. Um, because I'm not sure I completely buy the Russ bad locker
Mm.
room guy story. I don't personally. I've talked to enough guys in Denver, man, that have like in Denver and Seattle that have played with him, where it's does he okay, he's corny, like whatever, man. Like he's not no he's not an outwardly toxic bad leader. I don't think that's a
Yeah.
thing.
Gotcha. Well, that's good to hear, and I think that I was gonna add to that if you didn't, the off the field stuff that goes along with being a quarterback and with being a professional as well, that Russ will bring that Justin can learn from as well. This is an interesting question because we haven't talked about this position at all, but Michael wants to know about the fullback spot. Is Jack Toledo been the main fullback or Connor Hayward? Anyone else trying it out? Are they even using one? Just want to know about the position. LOL. Also, I want to throw in there that I mentioned the idea, and I don't know if they've done it. I don't know if they will do it. We'll see. But just with how many tight ends that we've talked about, how many could potentially be on the roster, I was wondering if maybe Michael Pruitt could do some of the fullback stuff for them in this offense as well.
He maybe could. I think he's more of an inline end blocker type though.
Okay.
Um, I think most of the fullback stuff will go to Connor Hayward when they do it. Right now, they do have a fullback on the roster, and Jack Coletto. I don't think
Mhm.
he's going to make the team, but they do have a fullback on the roster. I think Connor Hayward's going to be a guy that can be kind of a Swiss Army knife, do it all type of back. I also think they're going to be the fullback in Arthur Smith's offense. He does have a fullback, but it's not a traditional fullback. Like, you don't always have to be in the offset eye with the guy there. A lot of times the fullback in his offense is acting like another tight end who's shifting, strength to weak. So he's a guy that will block on the line of scrimmage or lead block, but from a tight end position. And what I mean by that is, they'll have two tight ends to one side of the field, and the fullback will be that second tight end, and maybe come in motion and lead block out there. So Connor Hayward can do that. Um, I'll tell you who I would be surprised does a little bit of it. Darnell Washington. I don't think that's
Mhm.
crazy. So they'll have fullback ish types. I don't think that there's going to actually be a designated fullback
Okay.
on the team, but I think most of the fullback stuff will go to Connor Hayward.
Gotcha. Okay. And then finally, we get one more in here. Hayden wants to know. We talked about Najee at the beginning of the show. Should we be worried about his absence from minicamp? Asked Hayden.
No, I don't think so. I'd be more worried if he was the only vet guy that didn't do anything. But
Hmm.
there were multiple vets that really didn't do anything. Like Cam Hayward really didn't do anything. Larry Ogunjobi did very little. Um, like Isaac Sayamalo didn't do that much. I mean, there's
Yeah.
just a lot of the vets that have been around the block. T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith, like, they didn't do much. I don't even know TJ took an entire. I don't even think TJ took a rep and team this minicamp. So
But it's not talked about as much because Najee's the
right,
one. They declined his fifth-year option, looking for a contract.
right.
Yeah.
So I mean, could it be contract related? I mean, I guess, but this guy showed up at OTAs and actually did team reps at OTAs. Why would you do that? And then all
Hmm.
of a sudden, just not participate in minicamp? I don't know. Doesn't really make much sense to me. If you're not going to take team reps, just don't take team reps. Period.
Yeah, I
So
wonder if Hayden may be looking at this. I don't know. I would assume that he was asking this from a contract perspective, or a little
yeah,
bit begrudgingly from Najee's side. But also, could it be taken as like maybe a bit of a tweak, some type of injury?
sure.
Maybe he meant like worried in that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, guys tweak stuff all the time at this time of year. So
Hmm.
it's not it's not out of the realm of possibility. Um, Landon Roberts, like I think Landon
Yeah.
Roberts had a little tweak.
Hmm.
It's probably nothing. But he didn't participate in 2 days of practice because who cares? It's minicamp. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe he strained his quad or something. I don't
Yeah.
know. But yeah, I mean, it could be a lot of things, but I don't think it's cause for concern unless, we get to training camp and, Najee Harris didn't talk throughout this
Yeah.
whole spring.
Yeah.
So I
Hmm.
don't really, so we don't have an eye yet into Najee's headspace. When my red lights were concerned would be, Najee Harris in that press conference says that he's going to hold in or something like that, but I don't I don't think it's contract related. I think they'll be fine there. So would not be worried about the Najee Harris stuff right now. Wouldn't be worried about the Cam Hayward stuff either. I think both those guys understand what's going on here. Um, you know, chance neither of them get a contract. Um,
Yeah.
James Daniels is not has already been told he's not getting a contract and is participating out there.
Hmm.
Um, so we'll kind of see where this goes. I am interested to see where the first extension goes and how that kind of puts the domino effect into things. Like, my immediate guess is okay, Jalen Warren says he's not talking contract. Pretty clear to me that they're not talking to Najee Harris for a contract. Cam says they're far away from a contract. James Daniels ain't talking to it. And then you have other guys, could they be talking to Fields or Russ? Sure. I mean, that's the wild card, but I think the leader in the clubhouse right now, um, probably for who is likely to get the most attention is probably Pat Fryermuth. But like, I'm even saying this right now, like Smitty, like, it's possible they don't sign anybody before the season, so we'll see.
It's possible. It's possible.
Yeah, I just think a lot of the signs, are pointing kind of in the direction of that. Like me and Alan and I have discussed it. It's by process of elimination. Like so many guys have said no, 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 no.
Mhm.
At some point, the three candidates that you point to are either Freiermuth, Wilson, or Fields, and it feels really odd to pay a quarterback before you see them actually playing a game. So I
Yeah.
don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, if I were taking, and this is not me putting anything out there other than making a prediction, I do think Pat Freiermuth gets an extension. I think that he is the one out of everybody that we're talking about that will be I say the first domino, might be the only one. So
It could be. Yeah, I don't
that's
know.
just where I'm at with it.
I was thinking, okay, if they pay someone if they pay, say, one of those three guys, maybe then the wheels start to get more serious on like Cam Hayward's extension talks, and they'll have a
Mhm.
better idea. I also think something to factor into these extension talks is we have to understand, like, I think they do want their wide receiver stuff. Like, it is very real.
Mm,
If they are
yeah,
going to trade for Cortland Sutton or Brandon Ayuk or whoever, and it's going to have a hefty cap hit, like they got to make sure that they have the room for that. So I think we'll kind of see how that all works itself out.
absolutely. Well, Nick, great conversation. We will see how things start to work themselves out. Maybe we'll have something new to talk about the beginning of next week. But until then, Nick, tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, you could find me on X at Farabaugh FB. Make sure to read this stuff over at SteelersNow.com. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn the notification bell here on the YouTube channel. More stuff coming, of course.
There you go. Hit us in the comments. Let us know what you thought about anything that we talked about on this episode, anything that you would like to see in a future episode, questions for future episodes, all that good stuff. If you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, you can find us there. Search Steelers Afternoon Drive, leave us a 5-star review, subscribe over there so you get a notification when a new pod is posted. Find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH for Nick Farabaugh and myself. Thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.